Canadian Blair Adams, a 31-year-old, was found dead on July the 11th, 1996, in a parking lot in Knoxville, Tennessee. His shirt had been ripped, he was naked from the waist down, his socks were turned inside out, he'd been beaten, and the blow that killed him was one to the abdomen that ruptured his stomach. Scattered on the floor around him was up to $4,000 in Canadian and American bills, plus some gold and other valuables. Blair had begun to exhibit strange behaviour earlier that summer, including leaving his worksite unlocked, not picking up his paycheck, mood swings and intense paranoia, and was convinced that an unnamed individual wanted him dead. The contents of the man's wallet identified him as 31-year-old Blair Adams of Surrey, British Columbia. When questioned by concerned family members, Blair would only reply, "I don't think I should tell you about it." Prior to his bizarre actions, Blair was known as a cheery individual who enjoyed his job as a foreman at a construction company. Just 6 days before he was murdered, on July the 5th, 1996, Blair withdrew his savings of over $6,000 and emptied his safety deposit box before attempting to enter the United States. He told his mum that something was bothering him. He wouldn't say what. His co-worker suggested he see a doctor. He told his mother people were spreading rumours about him. He told friends he feared someone was going to kill him. As it turned out, he was right. 48 hours later, he arrived at the Canadian-US border in an attempt to cross over into America. The Border Patrol on duty that day did not like the amount of valuables found in his car and immediately suspected him of being linked to drug smuggling. After his search turned up nothing, they told Adams he was under suspicion for being a drug mule and ordered him to turn back into Canada. On July the 8th, he packed his bags and left his mother Sandra Edwards' suburban home. Then he vanished until 3 days later. They acted a little strangely and giggled a lot, and it was kind of odd. But then he went back to his heterosexual relationship after that. That is what his mother said. She added that her son had hoped to attend the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta. He would never make the games. His mother told the Knoxville Sentinel that Adams was a kind and ambitious man. She alluded to the fact he once had a romantic relationship with another man. His flight would leave the following day, but just hours after buying the ticket, Blair was again desperate to get into the United States. He showed up at a female friend's house in a panic, terrified that someone was going to kill him, but his friend was unable to take him over the border. Then on Tuesday, instead of leaving for Germany, Blair turned in his tickets, rented a car and headed back to the border. This time, he was granted entry into the US and drove to Seattle, Washington, where he purchased a one-way ticket to Washington, D.C., which was almost twice as much as a round-trip ticket. He landed on the morning of Wednesday, the 9th of July, and once again rented a car. He then ended up driving over 500 miles to the southwest to Knoxville, Tennessee. Hadn't he just driven 500 miles in that car? How could he have had the wrong keys all of a sudden? That afternoon, around 5:30 p.m., the Toyota that Adams hired eventually ended up in Knoxville early that evening. He pulled up at a petrol station, where the attendant noticed he was having some sort of car trouble. He complained to the gas station attendant that his car would not start. The attendant told him he had the wrong keys. However, the rental car company was already closed for that day. Blair was stranded in Knoxville until the morning. The pair of them searched the station area for the lost key, but it was nowhere to be found. As caught by security cameras, in the lapse of an hour, he went in and out of the lobby 5 times before he finally booked a room and paid for it. He got his keys and left, but never went to his room. The last time anyone saw him alive, it was 7:37 p.m. 12 hours later, Blair's body was found in a parking lot about a half a mile from his hotel. He was naked from the waist down and appeared to have been stripped. His shirt had been ripped open and his pants and trousers had been removed. Both of his socks were inside out on his feet and his shoes had been removed. His money was scattered around his body and $2,000 worth of gold and jewellery had not been touched. An autopsy revealed that Blair had sustained cuts and abrasions, possibly from fending off an attacker, and had been killed by a violent blow that ruptured his stomach. The missing Toyota car keys were discovered in the same area as his body. Blair's friends and immediate family have no idea why he was in Knoxville. He did not know anyone in the area, and he therefore had no reason to be there. They were also confused about why he had zigzagged his way across 2 countries. Who or what was he trying to outwit? There are no known suspects. Police at first suspected that Blair's murder was a robbery gone wrong. However, that was ruled out because none of his money or valuables were stolen. They also looked into the possibility that it was drug-related. However, no evidence was found to support that either. Finally, they looked into the possibility that he may have been killed by a prostitute or pimp. However, they could find no evidence that he had ever used a prostitute. Unsolved, investigators have exhausted most of their leads in the case, but are still working on it. DNA was recovered from the hair found in Blair's hand. However, a match has not been found. Recently, his mother was re-interviewed. She claimed that he travelled to the American South to attend the Olympic Games. It is unknown why. She never told investigators about this before. Authorities believe Adams knew no one in Tennessee, and investigators who retraced his steps from the way he arrived made as little sense as the way he died. No one's been charged in the killing. All leads have been exhausted, and only one piece of DNA evidence exists. At first glance, they thought he was a vagrant who had bedded down at their job site. Further inspection revealed he was dead and had too much gold to be homeless. 2 construction workers stopping by an under-construction hotel at 7471 Crosswood Boulevard off the Strawberry Plains Pike exit for Interstate 40 discovered Adams's corpse in the parking lot around 7 a.m. Thousands of dollars in Canadian, German and American cash were found around his body and in pockets of his blue jeans. The owner of a siding company working at the site pocketed a $100 bill and a £10 bill, but authorities later recovered them. Adams' pants had been removed, like somebody had pulled them down for him, said Knox County Sheriff Jimmy J. Jones, who was a lieutenant over the Major Crimes Unit when he responded to the scene. Socks lay on the asphalt. Sets of keys and a card to the hotel room were strewn around. His shoes were off, and as he lay dying, he apparently pulled one of them under his head like a pillow. Detectives found a black duffel bag nearby that contained maps and various travel receipts. A fanny pack stuffed with nearly 5 ounces of gold bars, gold and platinum coins, jewellery, more keys, and a pair of sunglasses lay unzipped, its contents untouched. The autopsy found that Adams had been beaten. The fatal blow ruptured his stomach, and he died from septic shock. A weapon, possibly a club or a crowbar, Davenport said, sliced open his forehead. He put up a fight. His attacker ripped tufts of hair from his head. Adams' hands were bloodied, as if he had held them up to defend himself. One was cut deep and blackened like it was being forcefully knocked to the pavement. Investigators recovered a long strand of someone else's hair from that hand, the only significant piece of physical evidence in the case. Certain injuries indicated he had been sexually assaulted, Davenport said, but there was no DNA evidence, and it wasn't clear when the assault occurred. Authorities tested pieces of rebar from the construction site, but failed to locate the murder weapon. Although Adams had grappled with addiction in the past, toxicology reports showed no drugs or alcohol in his system. He had not officially been diagnosed with any kind of mental illness. The only person who reported hearing anything out of the ordinary was a security guard at the nearby business. He told detectives he had heard an abrupt scream about 3:30 a.m. and believed it to be in a woman's voice. Adams packed his bags and left his mother's home on the morning of Monday, July the 8th. That was the last time she saw him alive. In a recent phone conversation, Edward describes her son as kind and ambitious, and said she didn't believe he suffered from mental illness in the weeks before his death. She said Adams had once been romantically involved with a male roommate. They acted a little strangely and giggled a lot, and it was kind of odd, but then he went back to his heterosexual relationship after that, she said. She claimed Adams travelled to the South to attend the 1996 Summer Olympics Games in Atlanta. Information never relayed to authorities. The Games began July the 19th, 8 days after Adams' body was discovered, more than 200 miles away in Knox County. Edwards didn't explain how she knew her son's destination, how he ended up in Knoxville, or why she never told police. That was the whole point of his trip, Edwards said before hanging up the phone. Other calls to Edwards' home were answered by her husband, who grew angry, called chances of solving the case remote as hell, and said, "We're not going to open the can of worms again." Adams worked in late 1995 for his stepfather's prefab construction company, SS Cedar Homes, on an assisted living facility near Frankfurt, Germany. He met a woman there while attending a party in November, and the two began dating. She told detectives that Adams was a gentleman, whereas some, including a man he worked with in Germany, portrayed him as an abrasive and confrontational character who occasionally got in fights. Although Adams told several people he feared for his life, he specified to his German girlfriend and at least one other friend that he dreaded violence from former co-workers who had recently returned from Germany. 3 days before his death, on a travel service, a subdued Adams shelled out nearly $1,700 in Canadian cash for a round-trip flight to Frankfurt. He requested a refund the same day, explaining that the person he was going to visit had gotten sick. His German girlfriend wasn't expecting him. Before dawn on July the 9th, Adam was spotted wandering near the border. Then he attempted to cross on foot. Authorities at the Pacific Highway border crossing noted he had small scratches on his hands and legs. He matched the description of an auto theft suspect. And a blue car stolen in Vancouver had just been found near the point where he tried to cross. Adams appeared dazed but proclaimed his innocence. Police had no evidence to tie him to the stolen car, so they released him back into Canada. A friend later told authorities she saw Adams driving a blue car, not his usual Chevette, the day before. Adams, not ready to give up, abandoned his Chevette at the Vancouver International Airport and rented a Nissan Altima. On his third try, he made it across the border to Seattle. He ditched the Altima at the Seattle airport and purchased an overnight, one-way flight to Washington, D.C. for nearly $800 when he could have bought a round-trip ticket for half the price. He arrived at Dulles International Airport early Wednesday, July the 10th, rented the Toyota Camry about 6:45 a.m. and began the 7-hour drive to Knoxville. Near Zion Crossroads on US Highway 250 in Troy, Virginia, Adams backed his car into another man's vehicle, causing minor damage. The man told detectives that Adams seemed nice but was in a hurry. The first reported sighting of Adams in Knoxville occurred at a gas station on Strawberry Plains Pike at 5:30 p.m., roughly 14 hours before he was found dead. An interstate repair service driver, Gerald Sapp, responded to the gas station after a clerk saying Adams claimed the keys to his rental car didn't work. That's because Adams was trying to use a key that belonged to a Nissan from one rental company when he was driving a Toyota Camry from another, Sapp recalled. "I asked him to look in his pockets," Sapp said. "I said, if you drove this thing up here, you got to have another key in your pockets." And he wouldn't look, so I thought he was nuts. Adams was bound and determined that he had the key he needed for that car. Sapp arranged for a wrecker driver to tow the Camry to an auto shop and dropped Adams off at a nearby Fairfield Inn. Sapp said Adams walked off without his bag. Sapp took it to him, then he went home. "The guy was not all there," Sapp said. "He didn't appear to be messed up. He didn't appear to be on drugs, but his mind wasn't functioning correctly for some reason." Police called Sapp the next morning and informed him of Adams' death, then brought him in for questioning and took hair samples. The ordeal led Sapp, then in his 40s, to leave his job. "Police didn't accuse me, but I felt like I was under suspicion for killing somebody, and that was just that. That wasn't anywhere I needed to be," he said. And the allegedly missing key, it was found near Adams' body. At the then newly opened Fairfield Inn, located across I-40 from the site where his body would later be discovered, Adams continued to exhibit odd behaviour. He purchased a room with a $100 bill around 7 p.m. Then walked away without getting his change. The clerk repeatedly tried to call his room, but he wasn't there. Surveillance video showed him entering and exiting the lobby 5 times within 40 minutes. He seemed paranoid, hotel employee Tika Hartsfield said in a 1997 interview on the popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries. The show generated many tips but no significant leads in the case. He was very nervous, agitated, expecting someone to come in on him even though there wasn't anybody there, Hartsfield said. "I don't know who he was looking for, but he was waiting for somebody to walk in for him. Perry Moyers, then a KCSO detective who worked the case, ruled out 2 reported sightings of Adams after he left the hotel that night. 3 employees at the T&R truck stop on Deep Springs Road in Dandridge claimed they saw Adams there between 9:30 and 10:30 p.m, flipping through tattoo magazines and talking to an unidentified man about Canadian money. 2 women at the Cracker Barrel on Strawberry Plains Pike told detectives they saw Adams with another man who was never identified. Their stories differed on what the man looked like. Authorities believe Adams, who at one point had no car, ate somewhere after he left the hotel because he was found dead with lettuce, meat and shrimp still in his stomach. If Adams' journey was motivated by a planned drug deal or a romantic rendezvous, his friends, relatives, co-workers and girlfriends appeared unaware. None of them believed he would be involved in drug dealing, and no calls for the US had been made from his home. Because his body was found nude from the waist down with injuries indicative of sexual assault, investigators favoured theories to explain the killings tend to revolve around a sex act that turned deadly. A truck stop near the crime scene at Adamson's hotel, not the truck stop of the disproved sighting, served as a hotbed for prostitution at the time. "We thought he picked somebody up over there," Sheriff Jones said. Several of the suspects considered over the years were pimps or prostitutes known to work the area. Adams could have started the act and never did it and got rolled, Davenport speculated. Or maybe, if it was a female prostitute, maybe she had a pimp that was close by and they were going to roll this guy, and they got scared and didn't. Davenport believes the sex act could have been committed in a vehicle. When the struggle began, the killer might have hit Adams in the head, thrown him onto the road and struck him while driving away. The fatal blow to the stomach could have been caused by the vehicle's front bumper, Davenport believes. Jones disagrees. He thinks the blow was a kick. Davenport's theory would explain Adams' blackened hand. "He caught the pavement," Davenport said. "If you've ever wrecked a motorcycle, how the rocks or pavements would eat you up, one of his hands looked like that." After 21 years, some people who might have known about Adams' killing are likely dead or in jail. And with scarce physical evidence, cracking the mystery will take somebody telling us about it, Davenport said. "Any lead, however big or small, can be relevant," said Cold Case Unit investigator Debbie White, who worked as an FBI agent for more than 30 years. "Because right now, that's all we've got to base it on." Jones describes the case as the most interesting and the strangest in his 38-year career. Solving it has been a pipe dream for decades. "If I could have one wish, somewhere in a damn mayonnaise jar, I could find a note that tells me what happened, just so I'd know."